So we've spent almost an hour now talking about how do you want your end of life, and maybe it's not even the end of life. Maybe it's that pre-end of life. How you're going to live getting up to that part of life. What's important to you? Is it important to you to be able to be in charge of your own risk? Are you a risk taker? Are you a person that would rather be living at home and at risk of falling than living in the assisted living, and you had your risks removed, but you're not independent anymore? Those things are your decisions to make as long as you have decision-making capacity. Anticipate the medical pathway. So being aware, being informed, activated patients, knowing what your disease is all about, assuming you have one. And the older you live, the more you tend to accumulate, at least diagnosis, if not active disease. Understanding that, knowing what the risks are, knowing what your treatment patterns are going to be. We all like thinking that our patients are taking an interest in their own care and they're not just backseat drivers letting us drive the bus. They want to know what's going on and they have to tell us what's important to them. And that's that old nurse in me coming out when I'm talking about us. I spent a long time being a long-term care nurse and loved every minute of it. But having conversations with your families. We need to re-normalize conversations about death. Death is a very common event. Every family has experienced one. It is something that is going to happen to all of us, and we know somebody who has died. It is a normal life occurrence. We need not be afraid to talk about it. Does it make it any more likely to happen? It's just going to happen. Make copies of your documents, share them appropriately. You may have other things that you want to talk about. If you don't know how to have that conversation, you don't have any idea how to get started, or your decision makers are particularly reluctant to hear, there is a program initiative called the Conversation Project that is all about telling you how to have these conversations. Fun ways to do it, from card games to dinner events that you can have to talk about it. There is also a great book. I'm not particularly endorsing anybody else's book, but it's a great book called Being Mortal, written by Dr. Atul Gawande, that's been on the national bestsellers list. It's very entertaining reading for being a book about death and dying. And I think our last slide means that we're done. You have an advance directive, not really because you necessarily have a diagnosis, a terminal diagnosis, but just because you have a family and you don't want to burden them with making those decisions for you, those very difficult decisions. So we're done.
Yep.
Unless anyone has any questions. I think you're going to turn that off now.